What if I told you that focusing on one single thing, even when you do not know how it will work, is exactly what makes it work? In today's interview, I sit down with Ben OLAYINKA, an American Nigerian living in Berlin, who quit his job to do just one thing: running.
Okay, if I lived alone on a desert island, what would I do every day because I like it? And it was running. I would run if I was the last person on earth.
Ben is the founder of Run and Rave, a running community built around movement, music, and real connection. In this episode, we talk about how to identify what truly matters to you, what quitting your job actually feels like, the uncomfortable truth about turning passion into income, how to make a living doing something you care about, and how ADHD can become fuel instead of friction. If you are trying to find the one thing to focus on, this episode is for you. You were a programmer and then you quit your job and you decided to DJ and to start to run. What pain or need pushed you to do that?
I studied computer engineering for my bachelor's in the US, and then I came to Berlin, and that's what brought me to Berlin actually. I did my degree at TU. And then I started working as a consultant for tech companies, I would say. And I was doing technical writing, so a little bit of coding and then a little bit of writing about how to use the things that I was involved in coding. And it was fun. And at the beginning, I was really motivated because I was doing a lot of cool new stuff. I started making videos for companies about how to use their products. And I really enjoyed explaining in simple terms how to use complicated tech products. But I have crazy ADHD, and I always was starting other projects at the same time, and I've been very into athletics my whole life. So at the same time as I was working, I was also running a lot. I was boxing. I signed up for a triathlon, did 2 triathlons. Then in 2024, just over a year ago, one of my contracts ended that I was doing most of my tech work for. And instead of trying to find more work, I just thought, hey, I'm going to take that time and maybe put it into something which is bringing me a lot more joy. And the community stuff was really bringing me a lot of joy. So I started this running club, Run and Rave, in 2023, and it grew, and it was the thing that I looked forward to the most in my life, I think, because it gave me the sense of like family. And then I started watching videos online about how to really intentionally grow community and kind of to grow a business in general. And I just stumbled on some random video from an influencer called Alex Hormozi.
Oh yeah.
And his big thing is focus, I would say. So, he says usually when I talk to entrepreneurs and they tell me they've got like a couple different side hustles going on, I know that they're not doing well. And what he says is like, how are you going to beat people who are doing one thing if you're doing a whole bunch of things? And that really stuck with me. And so then in this process, when I thought, okay, I'm going to drop the tech, like this particular tech thing that I'm doing, and then I'm going to take that time and invest it in all the other projects that I have. Instead, that became, okay, I'm going to pick the one thing that brings me the most joy, and I'm just going to do that. And so then I asked myself, okay, if I lived alone on a desert island, what would I do every day because I like it? And it was running. I would run if I was the last person on earth. And so then that gave me kind of the clarity to say, okay, I want to focus on just Run and Rave, and to make that my entire life. And so then I quit tech a year and a couple months ago.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. I also follow a lot Alex Hormozi, and has a lot of wake-up calls in every time he speaks. He has some phrases that has stick with me a lot. Like, for example, work hard, or like work smart, not hard. And it's like, okay, but that's assuming that you're competing against people who are dumber than you, but everyone out there are also smart and are also working hard. So,
but I mean, that's the perfect example. Like, I always worked hard. My schedule 2 years ago was that I would wake up in the morning, I would swim for an hour, I would run for an hour, I would be in the gym for an hour, and then I would get home, I would try to practice the piano for an hour, I would work all day, and then in the evening, I had a little bit of time to do some, like, I don't know, whatever I thought was kind of rest a little bit.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, I would go boxing.
Wow.
And the reason that this focus on one thing hit me so hard is because I was like, I wasn't really making crazy progress in any of these things. I was just kind of staying above water, like struggling because you're so exhausted when you schedule your day like that, that you don't even really have the joy of like watching something grow. Like you need the ability to step back and be like, okay, cool, like this is what it looked like a week ago, this is what it looks like this week, or this is what it looked like a year ago, this is what my progress has been for a month. But when you have 10 things on the burner at the same time, it's impossible to look at them like that. Like you're just, okay, what's next on the schedule? Like that's all you do. So you're physically there, but you're not really mentally there. And that's what work hard sounds like to me. And I learned that from my mom. My mom is exactly the same way. She, every year at the beginning of the year, she creates this New Year's resolution of all of the things that she's going to accomplish. And that's always like learn a new language, play the piano better, which is why I was playing the piano, because she loves playing the piano. She's pretty good at it. She learned when she was a kid, but get in shape, work less in her real job, but then also she has a lot of like projects on the side which she wants to devote herself to. And I always thought, I was always so impressed, because I was like, man, my mom is a superhero. She, can do all of these things. And then once I, heard this sort of philosophy about focusing on one thing and taking all the energy and putting into this one thing, then I started to see the way my mom does it very differently. And I've had a lot of conversations with her since, where I'm like, look, I went from thinking that was a good way to go through life, just like trying to give 1,000% in 100 things, everything that sounds interesting to you. And then I tried the opposite, which is saying no to absolutely everything and pouring 100% of your energy into the one thing, and then doing it as much as you can each day. So like, maybe 4 hours a day of really intense work on this one thing that you love, and then basically resting the rest of the time. And I will never go back. Never, ever, 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 ever in a million years will I ever try to do it the other way again, because it's exhausting, and you're giving 100% and you're getting back not that much. Whereas if you do it the opposite, and you really prioritize rest and then this intense focus on the thing that you like, I work a lot less than I worked before, and the results are insanely, insanely better. Alex Hormozy also says this thing that I like, which is like, if you imagine that you're selling a product, right? You have a really, really good product. And what a lot of people then do is they're like, okay, cool, we have this really good product. Let's make another product so we can make more money. And he's like, it makes a lot more sense to just sell twice as much of the same thing. Because if you create a new product, that means you have an entire new infrastructure behind this new product, and you incur the cost and the learning, and you're starting from zero basically with something new, right? And the amount of effort that it takes, like if you took that effort and you just put it into the first thing, you could probably like grow the first thing a lot better without any of the risk of starting something random and new which you don't know. And another thing is also like, if you think that something is easy, it's probably because you haven't tried it. And so I think often, I know that for me, the reason I was always starting new things is because I see my friends doing something. I saw my friends boxing, I saw my friends doing triathlon, and I was like, I could do that better than them, And so then I would go and try, and only when you do it do you realize why it's so hard. With my mom, I'm like, hey, I think that if you let go of some of these things, like if you accept, okay, maybe I'm not going to learn French, then you take that time and energy and then you put it into something that's really meaningful to you, like just the piano, and you will probably have a lot of, it will be very, very rewarding how much that thing grows. Or if you let go of all those things and you decide, I'm just going to get fit, like if I say to my mom, if the only thing that you had to do every day was exercise for 30 minutes, you would do it, right? But at the beginning of the year, she always says, I'm gonna get in shape, and then a month, 2 months in, she's tired, because if every day on your shoulders is I have to exercise, I have to practice this for an hour, I have to do this for an hour, I have to do this for an hour, stuff starts to go. And that was the real awakening for me a year ago when I quit everything was realizing that like if you decide I'm just going to do this one thing, it's very, very easy to actually accomplish it every day.
And was it hard to really just do one thing?
No, it's
So
really
you just
easy.
took the decision and just say no to everything.
From one day
else.
to the next, I quit everything.
Wow. Because sometimes I always start with that decision, like I'm going to focus on one thing or less things.
Yeah.
But I end up again falling in the same thing of saying yes to everything. And sometimes the secret is to learn how to say no and just to be very selective on the things you say yes.
Definitely. Okay. So one thing that was hard was letting go of DJing. And the way I let go of DJing is that I used to every week, like, and in my spare time, find music, try to record mixes. And I just decided I'm not going to invest any time in being a DJ anymore, right? And so that meant from one day to the next, I never, since then I have not recorded a mix. I haven't posted online about DJing. I haven't done anything. But people do still sometimes ask me if I'll come and DJ an event, and when it's well paid, then I do it because it's fun and it's free money basically, right?
You just play a playlist that you had already before.
Exactly. I don't really buy new music. I don't spend any time like I don't invest my creative energy into it at all. And I remember there was one time somebody asked me if I wanted to play a gig. And then I sent them my profile, and my profile says like used to be a DJ or something, And in that moment, I thought, oh shoot, should I like create another profile for me as just a DJ, And then if somebody asks me that, I can send that to them. And I decided not to do it, and I'm so happy that I decided not to do it, because that would have been exactly this, which is this like feeling the pain of letting go of something, and then because of that pain, going back to that thing. And I'm very, very happy with my commitment, right, to running, and having said, okay, I'm not investing any creative energy in this other thing. And every once in a while, when I play a DJ gig and somebody sends me photos, then I put them on my running profile because it's fun and people like the photos anyway.
But I mean, also helps with a combination of running and rave, right?
It's exactly. So run and rave is any way I could, kind of, it would still be a little bit on brand to do music stuff. But I really, in my personal life, I just focus on the running. And then raving is kind of like, it's more of a community thing where like other people come and DJ, or it's just like music is always playing when we run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You grew up in Nigeria and then later in Arizona, and then you came to Berlin to study. You said, like in the TU.
Yeah.
What? How was the place where you grew up, like back in Nigeria, and how did that influence your later years?
It was paradise. I grew up in a compound, like an institute, where scientists from all over the world did research about plants. It was called the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Ibadan, Nigeria. And my mom did her like postdoc work there. That's where she met my dad. And if you can imagine, it was like tropical rainforest. All like much of the remaining forest in Nigeria exists inside this big, big campus. And as kids, our parents would just like kick us out the door in the morning, and we would just go run around. And it was like, I think there's a video on my Instagram. I went back. I've been back a few times since I left, and it's as beautiful as I remember. It's really like a paradise of a place.
And then when you moved how old were you when you moved to the US?
10.
You were 10.
Mm.
How was the change? Was it hard for you?
Horrible. That was horrible, yeah. Because I grew up with like 10, 15 friends who I knew my whole life, more or less. And we were also very, very isolated from the real world, right? So I didn't know what bullying was. I didn't know what I didn't know what normal middle school, high school, teenage life is like in a horrible place like America. We just lived in this little idyllic paradise. It was like, imagine like living on an island and you're the only people in the world. It was a completely fenced compound. We rarely went outside, and it was extremely natural. We had a lake, beautiful forest, and as kids, there was no danger. We could just walk around and go wherever we want. So we had a lot of freedom to just, be kids. And then I moved to the US, and I had no friends. I was really weird because I didn't grow up there, and I was extremely sensitive because I didn't know what normal people were like.
Okay.
And I remember just crying every night by myself because I didn't have any friends, and I thought that nobody liked me. And I remember there was like a group of boys, and they used to call me Milkman because like I used to drink milk and then have a milk mustache. I just loved milk. I drank a lot of
Okay.
milk as a kid, and I thought that they were picking on me. And then then 5 years later or something like this, then I saw a lot of those guys, and by then I had sort of adapted more to being an American, and they were so happy to see me after 5 years, and that's when I realized that they weren't even being mean when I was kid. I was just so overwhelmed, and I didn't know. I was just so different that I didn't know how to get along with anybody, and so I felt very, very lonely, and I had never learned to talk about the fact that I was lonely, and so I didn't tell my mom, and I just kind of went and like I really shut down, and I had a really difficult like my from 10 to about 20 was that was probably the worst, like when it was my worst self.
And also, I mean, from the tropical weather, a lot of green, like more paradise, I would say. And then I don't know about Arizona, but I know
So
that it's a desert, right?
we moved to Oregon. My
Okay.
mom lives in Oregon. Oregon is very beautiful and very green.
Okay.
But I think that I am more interested in people, and my mom is more interested in nature. So the reason my mom went to Nigeria is because she loves plants, and I am much more interested in like relationships with people. Even though I'm maybe not so good at them, I like people, and I always wanted to live in a city. And so when we moved to Oregon, I remember I became so distant from my mom that she would try to make us go hiking or do all this beautiful stuff in the nature, and I hated it. Like I just wanted to go to the mall and make friends because I felt lonely and I felt like it didn't fit in. And it's so weird because the things that my mom wanted to do were so wholesome. Like if she asked me now if I wanted to go and hike a beautiful mountain, I would say of course. But back then, I would just throw tantrums because I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't appreciate it like I should have, and I guess that was a product of feeling so so disconnected from everything.
And then you stayed there until you moved to Berlin, or you moved to other places inside the US?
I moved to quite a few other places. Because I hated being in the US so much, I was like, there must be somewhere else. So first I went to a prep school when I was 14. Like my first year of high school, I went to a prep school, which was a very, very fancy school that my mom actually wished that she had gone to, close to where my grandma was. And I went there, and it was a bunch of rich kids. And then I started stealing stuff, and I got arrested for shoplifting and kicked out of the school. Yeah, and then I came back. Then I came back and went to high school back in Corrales, and then I went to university. I just accepted a scholarship to play basketball somewhere, against like as far as away as possible from where I was, and there exactly the same thing. It was a bunch of rich kids, and I just started drinking a lot and got in a lot of trouble and did a lot of bad shit and then got kicked out.
That thing about the rich kids, you felt like you didn't belong to that circle, or what was the problem there?
I mean, even though I had good friends, realizing that you're poor is
So you were not
you
belonging to
insecure.
that. Your parents were not rich. You're
Definitely
saying
not. No,
so
I was
but
like
they
on a scholarship, and it was. I knew how much it cost to go to that school, and I felt guilty about that, like about the pressure on my family, and so I didn't want to ask for money, but I still saw what, like, my roommate had a plane.
Wow.
My roommate had a plane.
Wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
And so yeah.
I also my first years in school, I went to a private school. Of course, private schools in Mexico don't tend to be so elite. Well, depending on which one it is, but my parents did the effort to put me there, and we didn't have a car, for example. And for me, it was a big thing of seeing my friends being picked up with Mercedes-Benz SUV or
Exactly.
BMW. And I was thinking, am I the poorest person on earth?
Exactly.
Because I felt like so out of place. Of course, it was a bilingual school, so and therefore I can speak English. I understand now why they did it. But of course, when you feel like you're excluded and you have like this scars that it leaves about,
Yep.
I have no money, right? Later on in high school, I went to a public school and I realized that there were normal people, other mates whose parents were selling in the as a Wochenmarkt, like in the market, they were selling fruits and vegetables. And I thought, oh, this was a completely different, I don't know, world for me because I was coming from this place where everyone was like more successful or whose
Exactly.
parents were more successful than me. Then what was the reason that you wanted to move to Europe and especially to Berlin? Was that a calling or just about the studies?
When you said this thing about the parents, it made me like, one thing that I really believe now is that the most important thing about a relationship is vulnerability, right? And the more honest you can be in a relationship, the more of a real deep connection you can build. And in the end, what we actually care about is connection, right? And the reason that you feel so shitty when you see all of these rich people is because you feel like you don't belong, right? You feel like they are different from you or something like this. And I think the irony is that kids don't give a shit about money, you know? So like, because as a kid you feel lonely, you blame it on the fact that you don't have something that they have. But I think that, for example, I know some kids who grew up poor and their parents were really, really open with them and really proud, and they explain, you know what I mean? Like the parents really gave them a sense of pride in who they were and what they worked for and the education that they were able to get. And I don't think that those kids ended up with the same kind of trauma because I think, again, that the root of all of that trauma is really a feeling of not having anybody. And for me, I think that if I had known that I could tell my mom, I feel lonely and sad and I feel embarrassed that I don't have any money, and she was like, hey, but I don't care, then I probably would have been like, well, actually, I don't care either. I just think that nobody likes me. And she might have been like, well, does it seem like nobody likes you? And I probably would have been like, no, it doesn't seem like nobody. It doesn't seem like anybody cares at all. But it was like the inability to overcome this embarrassment and even to talk about it, because I didn't really have that relationship with anybody. I think that was a lot more damaging. The inability to admit that you feel embarrassed is a lot more damaging than the embarrassment. That's kind of the lesson that I took away from all this, and so in my relationships now, and if I ever have kids, I'm going to like, if I send my kids to a really, really rich school, I'm gonna be like, hey, look, like a lot of these kids have a lot more money than you, and if you ever feel like embarrassed about that or whatever, then come talk to me, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah. But what you asked, the why did I come to Europe? In Nigeria, I grew up with mostly Europeans, and it was, I would say, a very sort of European culture. We walked everywhere. I don't remember. I don't remember hardly any Americans, and I think that so a lot of like my mentality, my sort of cultural upbringing was very European, and so when I started visiting Europe, I felt very much at home. And so then, as soon as I had a chance, a good excuse, I left. I remember actually, the decision that I made was because every summer I would save up and then go just backpack through through Europe for 6 weeks, 2 months, and then I would come back and all I would be talking about was how much fun I had. And at a party one time, somebody's like, "Yeah, why don't you just move there?"
Okay.
And then a month later, I moved. I was like, thank you for the
advice.
Thank you for the advice. And I think I told everybody I was going on holiday. I quit my job, gave away all my stuff, and just left. Like, took me a month, 2 months, whatever.
And was it easier here to find that sense of belonging?
Way, way, way easier, like a trillion times easier. From the first month that I was in Berlin, I felt more at home than I did in the entire 10 years in the US.
What was the thing? What was in particular the thing?
Because here you are connected to your neighborhood. Like where I live, I walk to the coffee shop, I walk to the grocery store, and I know half the people on the street that I see because I walk past them every day and we say hello. And that's also what Nigeria was kind of like, you know? And so I feel a very strong sense of community here.
And when you were back in Nigeria, you were living in this kind of like complex for expats? Or
Yes.
what?
Yeah, a science compound.
Okay.
So a big fence. You could think it was like Jurassic Park, like just a big fence, and inside a lot of plants and animals and farmland and a lake. And everybody who was there was mostly scientists or working in science.
So you never experienced neither the Nigerian lifestyle?
Not really. My dad is Nigerian, and so we would go and visit his family sometimes, but maybe only once or twice a year. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with real Nigerian culture.
Okay, because I don't know if that's a part of you that's still like you're part Nigerian.
Yeah.
How does it reflect in your daily life, that cultural part, or is it like very minimum, or there are parts like of your Nigerian culture that show up in your daily life?
I mean, I love Nigerian music. My mom also loved all kinds of African music and collected a lot of African music. So it's like I have an appreciation for it, but kind of like as a tourist. And when I DJ, I play a lot of Nigerian music. But I can't speak my dad's language, and my cousins, like, they love me for being who I am, but to them I'm not Nigerian.
Yeah.
They tell me that, like, you're a Nigerian, but they're also like, don't go into this place or you'll get robbed.
Yeah. Yeah, they know how things work, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So, we were saying about like you felt more at home here in Berlin because of this kind of like walking, and you see the same people everywhere. Which year in Berlin do you think it changed you the most?
What?
Which year changed you the most?
What do you mean?
What was the moment that it clicked with you in Berlin and you felt like something changed in you, or you feel like you have been the same, or have you become someone different while being here?
I think every year there was a lot of growth. I would say when I first came, I was partying a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe the first thing I learned was that it's okay to say no to stuff, because in Berlin, so much stuff happens that if you try to go to everything, you just die. Probably the second thing I learned was that Berlin is famous for parties, but it should be famous for everything except parties, because if you come here and you don't party, there's amazing dance communities, there's amazing running communities, there's amazing, like, literally anything that you can think of in Berlin, there's a really cool community for it. And I think that was like the beginning of change. I was like running every day. I would party until 2 a.m. and then I would wake up at 7, 8 a.m. and join a like running club and go run. So I lived this kind of half life at the beginning of Berlin, because I still wanted to go see this DJ, but then I also knew how good it made me feel and how much more fulfilling it was to, like, get some exercise. So those were some of the first things that I learned in Berlin, is that there's, infinite things to be passionate about and communities to get involved in. And then there was COVID. And during COVID, I learned how great it feels to sleep 8 hours every day and just chill around the house and, like, cook stuff and make videos. And then in the last year, I learned how important it is to, I learned how amazing life can be if you take all of your energy and you pour it into one thing that's meaningful to you. So every year had its own learning here.
You mentioned that before you focus on one thing, that you were doing a lot of things, like almost falling into a burnout because of doing many things. And you also mentioned you have ADHD. When did you realize you had it? Was it that moment when you feel I'm doing too much, or was it diagnosed before?
I was diagnosed when I was 10 or something, 11, 12, right when we moved to the US.
And how does it look like for someone who has never experienced it?
The way I would describe it is as, imagine every time you're doing something, you think that something else would be a good idea. So like the way, I make some videos about it on my profile where I'm like, I start to wash the dishes and then I'm suddenly I'm like, and I think of a song and I'm like, oh, I want to hear this song. And then I put all the dishes down dirty and I walk over and then I start to turn the song on. And then when I'm there, then I see like that there's a book that I have only half read and I forgot about it. And then before I even put the song on, then I go and I pick up the book and then I'm like, oh, I'm hungry actually. And then I go to the fridge and start to make, so it's like I think the medical description is that there's a part of your brain which is that multitasks. Basically, it's like new ideas come in and they go through this like filter in your brain. And for most people, they're like, okay, what I'm doing is important. And so I see this new idea, but I'm going to put it aside and maybe deal with it later. And I think for me, the new idea just seems so important and interesting that I tend to get distracted and just start something new all the time. And that happens on a small scale, like, just in my house getting stuff done. But then it also happens on a big scale where I have a project or a job and my capability is basically full, but still somebody comes along with a new idea. Like I wanted to make a video game, I remember, and I was like already maxed out in everything in my life. And I was like, I think this would be a really good idea. And then I spent a whole bunch of money and time developing this random video game on the side. And then, so I think combined with I'm also very, like if I start something, I really want to see it through, and I maybe it's the competitiveness or whatever, but it means that I end up going 100% in all of these random things that I've started. And so ADHD looks like just sort of this very scattered, many projects at the same time, and a lot of them not getting done because it's just impossible to do everything well.
So you just get like this kind of like boost of the beginning of starting to see something being created, and then once
the maintenance,
yeah, okay. My wife tells me that I also might have some sort of ADHD, that I should get checked. I don't know if it changes the perspective when you get diagnosed, or if you just let it happen.
To be honest, it doesn't matter. Like I hear a lot of people saying like, hey, how did you find out that you have ADHD? And if you think that you have ADHD, that's enough. Like going to the doctor and getting a piece of paper that says it is not going to help you. Like what you need is just to ask yourself, what are the, like, I don't know, what are the difficulties in my life and what can I do about them? And for me, I knew that I was really excited about new things, and so I thought the difficulty in my life would be being the kind of person who let things go because I was lazy, and so I would start new things, but I would really stick to them. And so then, because I stuck to all these things, like I said, like I swam for an hour every morning, ran for an hour every morning, boxed for an hour every day, practiced the piano every day. At the end of the day, I was like, I gave everything that I could. And I think that was true. And the problem was just that my concept of what was possible was maybe not there. I hadn't really learned that it's okay to just say no to things from the beginning. And so like going and getting diagnosed as having ADHD and then that being the explanation for why I'm doing this isn't really important in that context. The importance is just realizing, okay, am I getting what I want? And then when I listened to this podcast or whatever and I also read a book called The One Thing, and reading that, it was like, hey, if you take all that energy and you put it into one thing, that thing might grow to be something which makes you happier than all of these random things that you're telling yourself are so much fun. And just choosing to believe that was enough for me to then be like, okay, cool, now I'm going to switch the way I'm doing things. And so I have a ADHD diagnosis, but it's never done anything in my life.
When you quit all your stuff, how do you deal with the feeling of, okay, I'm quitting, like I'm giving up on other stuff? For
It's the
example, I'm giving up
best thing ever.
basketball or
Best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because the worst feeling is the feeling of carrying responsibilities which you will never be able to fulfill. And as soon as I quit, I was like, this was the right decision. Because, for example, with basketball, like I made it to a very, very high level of playing basketball in the US. And then I always had this weight on my shoulders, which was, you invested 15 years of your life every day, 2 hours playing basketball, you better do something with it, you know? And so at the end, like, with all these things that I was already doing, I was already exhausted, and I was still like, okay, where can I fit in some basketball? Because since I've already spent 15 years playing basketball, if I don't play basketball, I'm wasting my potential and talent. And I was never going to be anything as a basketball player. You know, like, it's not, I don't want to be a professional basketball player, but I still carried this responsibility. And so picking one thing was a way of realizing I decide what I want to do, and it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks I need to do. It doesn't matter what I've spent my time until now doing. All that matters is what really brings me joy. And so it allowed me to then say, like, fuck basketball. Like, I have not picked up a basketball since making this commitment, you know, and I haven't gone swimming. I haven't swam laps since making this commitment, and I feel so fucking good about that. Like, you cannot imagine how relieving it is to realize that you don't have to do something anymore, you know? And then with that energy that you get back from not having those things, you can make the thing that you do decide you want to do grow like you can never imagine. So that's the beauty, and it doesn't take it. You know, I would say to everybody who is struggling with this ADHD thing, like I had, like doing a million things, just try for a week. Just quit everything and do one thing for a week and see how you feel. Because for me, after a week, I was like, I've never had this much rest in my life, and I feel amazing. And it was very easy for me to let go of the, like, guilt and responsibility that I had been carrying around, that I needed to be a professional basketball player, I needed to be a programmer, I needed to be, you know, like, I would never look back at those things.
Got it. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. What I have, for example, and I was telling you before that I have started to delegate some stuff for the podcast.
Yeah.
But the issue is that, what am I doing with that time that I'm freeing from myself? I'm using it for something more focused, of course, for the podcast. But at the same time, now I have the feeling that I'm filling this free time with other stuff. So this is the kind of thing that sometimes, okay, now I have more time for this other idea, or I can do that. And sometimes it gets like a really crazy, I don't know, mess in my head.
Yeah.
You said that you have started to rest more. How do you stop yourself of using that time, that free time, for starting something that can distract you?
Well, there's two things there. One is, I said, okay, I'm making my life about running and my community, Run and Rave. And then I said, what do I need to do? And first, my first thing was, okay, I need to find a way to make a living doing this, because otherwise I'm gonna not have any money. And so I tried a bunch of stuff at the beginning. Like, right when I quit my job, I tried emailing a bunch of companies to see if they wanted to work with us. I tried calling companies. I made a presentation. I updated our website, and I didn't. It wasn't fun at all. I hated it. I hated sending random cold emails to companies. And so after 2 weeks, I said, "Fuck this." And then I thought about it a lot, and I was like, okay, if I don't want to send cold emails to people, what can I do that drives this, that puts us in this direction of people wanting to work with us? And I thought, hey, we have a really, really cool community. We show up together every week. We do cool stuff. There's a million cool stories. People always tell inspiring, amazing stories. Why don't I just try to capture those stories? And so then I made my job to be, I would try to make one piece of content every day about something inspiring in the community. And so that meant that every day, all I had to do was run and make a video or write something. And So I did that every day for a year. The last year, every single day, I have run and I've told a story or created a piece of content about the running community. And when I decided that those were the things that I needed to do, that meant that every day, once I checked off those two things, then I rested. Like, um, and that's how I would say that's how I avoided that, is by being very, very clear about what the goal was, and then deciding on one thing that I need to do, which puts me in the direction of that goal, and then saying fuck everything else.
Would you say that this book, The One Thing, was a book that changed your life?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
If you think, instead of every time you think, hey, I want to start something new, like, you want to start the podcast in English, if you thought, hey, with the things that I already have, if I just grew those to be, if I had the biggest Spanish speaking podcast in the world, would I then feel like I needed to start an English speaking podcast? Or would I be able to always find some new kind of joy in the thing that I'm already doing? And I think that that's what actually happens when you decide, okay, I'm committing entirely to this thing. Because in the last year, it was like, there always came up new things that I needed to do inside that organization that there were problems that I needed to solve, because we started organizing bigger events, the community got bigger. And so that meant that then, in addition, I had to, there was a one point where I was completely overwhelmed by event planning. And I was like, okay, I need to solve this because this is taking me away from the things that I said I needed to do, which is everyday run and everyday tell a story. And so then there was a little period of time there where I sat down with the group and gave a lot of leadership away to other people. And then I was able to go back to just doing my own thing, So if you decide, I'm going to say no to everything and I'm just going to grow the one thing, what happens with that one thing is that it grows so big that you get a million problems inside that thing that you have to solve anyway. And those then take up all your time. But the cool thing is that once you solve those, that then they grow, that your one thing grows massively, and you see the benefit of that in a very, very different way.
But in your case, okay, running and making a video was the one thing, or two things that you needed to do for that one thing.
Exactly.
And then once you have done those two things, then you can say, okay, now I can make again a call to a possible partner or so on. Or
no, then I did nothing.
Okay. Yeah. And the thing about how are you going to make a living? When did that get solved?
In February, a shoe company called us and they were like, hey, we see we've been following you on Instagram for 4 months. Do you want to enter into a long-term partnership? And then that solved my money problems overnight.
Okay, so that one thing compounds and then creates attention because you were creating content, growing the community, creating content. So eventually it attracts that possible partner.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Jumping about community building, what have you learned about friendships and love from running your community?
Ooh. Friendships and love are everything. I remember reading this book called Humankind by Rutger Bregman. And one of the stories in the book is about how at Christmas during World War II, all of the soldiers, they put down all of their guns and they, one by one, they started to sing or raise a Christmas tree or decorate some lights. And then it's supposed to have been one of the craziest experiences, but all the soldiers then, they put down their weapons and they walked the line and they sat there and they enjoyed a cigarette with each other and they drank some tea and they laughed and they saw each other as human beings. And for the generals, this was their worst nightmare, because what they were trying to do is get their soldiers to hate each other enough that they were willing to kill each other. And in the aftermath of this, the soldiers who were on the opposite lines, they would then send a message to the other group, and they would say, "Hey, the general is coming, and so we are going to have to shoot, but stay low and we'll shoot high." Because they had connected as human beings, and the last thing that they want to do is kill each other. And there's been all kinds of military research to figure out why soldiers fight. And in the end, I remember there's one interview where they're asking like, how well do you identify with the Nazi cause, or how well do you identify with the Allied cause? And one of the soldiers is like, I think you have no idea why soldiers fight. And the learning is that soldiers fight for each other, for their brothers and their sisters. And so what I would say I've learned through community building is that your idea is it almost doesn't matter. Like, what matters is that people like each other and develop relationships with each other. And that happens when people come together and spend real time with each other. And so my focus has gone from trying to come up with the best ideas to trying to create a structure for people to spend quality time with each other, and then just create some kind of a system where people can really speak up and make the community their own, and feel involved. So do less, actually.
Yeah. This kind of communities, especially running communities, have become a place, or one of the best places to meet new people, but also places where people want, also for the purpose of meeting someone in a more than just a friendship.
Okay.
A lot of people have said that they have met their
I think this
their
is
mate. Like,
I think this is a joke which comes from the fact that a running club is a very, very easy way to become part of a community. And then you get there and you realize these are all like sort of fit, independent, happy, inspired people. And of course, like,
that's attractive.
That's attractive, right? Yeah. And so I think the joke is more like, hey, I went to a run club because I thought it would be good for my health. And I realized that everybody there is really attractive. More than like people actually create run clubs or attend run clubs with the intention of finding a partner. I think there's just it's like a funny side effect,
Okay.
But
I think it might happen that sometimes someone approach someone from the club and makes maybe feel the other person maybe uncomfortable. How is it wrong to flirt with someone in the running club, and how to do it in the right way, or how to set the limits without making it awkward?
Yeah. I mean, I think it has the same risk as flirting with a complete stranger in any other place in real life, except maybe that you're going to see the person again for sure. With Run and Rave, I try to create as little like rules as possible, because I don't know what everybody likes, right? And our only rule is, hey, we create this space together, and if anything makes you uncomfortable, speak up about it. Like, come to any of the captains and tell us if something makes you uncomfortable, and if you don't feel safe to do that, then try to find somebody who does feel safe and can speak up for you, because if you don't tell us, then we can't change anything. And so I think that there are probably lots of times when people flirt and both people enjoy it. And then we don't really need to do anything about that. And then there are lots of times when people flirt and one person doesn't enjoy it. And then what we want to do is make it clear to the other person that the boundary is being crossed.
What small details make strangers feel like they're in a tribe or in a community? What details are special to make it work?
I don't have a magic answer for that. Like I said, my experience is that if you just give people time to get to know each other, then magic happens.
Let's get into something more polemic, and you talk a little bit about it. What do you think about guys taking off their shirt when they run?
I again, like flirting, I think there are some people who really enjoy it and some people who don't like it. And so what I always say is, I'm not going to make a rule about it. Do what you want, and if it makes somebody uncomfortable, then let's have a conversation about that.
You're the kind of who takes the shirt to run, right? Takes off the shirt.
So I take my shirt when I run by myself. I take my shirt off because it feels great. But in running clubs, I don't. Or at least in Run and Rave, I've never done it. At other people's clubs, I have, because it's been 40 degrees or whatever.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of conversations with people about this recently, and the part I understand is that if you feel that you will be unsafe if you take your shirt off, right? Like, as a woman, as a woman, a lot of runners feel that they will be sexualized, that they will receive attention that they don't want if they take their shirts off. This is what I've heard, and so then when I take my shirt off, that is like kind of clearly me exercising a privilege which they do not have, which like sort of reminds them of something that they don't have, I guess.
Got it. Yeah.
And that I completely get. I don't think that that me keeping my shirt on is going to give them more privilege, you know? And so that's why I really like taking my shirt off because it feels good, and I do it because it's hot, and I run a lot, you know. I run more than most people, and so I don't really want somebody to tell me what I should wear when I run. But if somebody comes to me in a group setting and says like, "Hey, this makes me uncomfortable," then there's a 99% chance that I'm going to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, and just put my shirt on." But I don't but I would never then say, "Hey, in our group, as a rule, I'm going to stop people from doing this." Because I don't know that everybody there cares, right? Like, it's very, very possible that everybody's perfectly happy with people taking their shirts off. And from having conversations with people, I have talked to as many people who are like, "I love it when people take their shirts off, it's great," as people who are like, "I don't like it." And in our community, I think we also have a pretty... a lot of the people are pretty open-minded, and I have never experienced that it seemed like anybody cared about anybody else taking their shirt off. So that's one reason, and then the other reason is that, again, I want people to sort of speak up and shape the environment to be what they want, and so I want to give people freedom, and then also try to encourage people to, like I said, if they feel uncomfortable about something, speak up about that, and then we try to create a solution which makes everybody happy. Because I don't think that if I say, "Hey, nobody gets to take their shirts off," the issue here is that a lot of men don't realize that women don't have the same privilege, right?
Yeah.
And just by saying, "Hey, we're not allowed to take our shirts off," I'm not really solving that problem. Like, to solve the problem of men not understanding that women don't have that privilege, we should have a conversation about differences in privilege. And it's very, very possible to keep your shirt on and not realize that there's a privilege. I did most of my life when I have my shirt on, I'm not thinking, okay, I'm consciously keeping my shirt on because there's a difference in privilege between me and another group of people. And so when I have this conversation with people who are very, very emotional about this, I say, "Hey, like, can we find a solution which does not take away privilege from one group, but then still speaks to the issue we have, which is that this group is not acknowledging their privilege." And I think that you can take your shirt off and still say, "Hey, I want to do my best to raise the privilege up and make it safer for everybody," you know?
Yeah, I get that point about like exercising that kind of thing that you as a man can do, and if they do it, they don't feel as safe as you would feel.
Yeah.
I have a friend, and she goes to some yoga classes, and she always leaves her shirt right on.
Yeah.
The one day that it was so hot, she just removed it. I mean, she had like this like sport bra.
Yeah.
And that was the day the teacher made some sort of awkward move on her.
Okay.
Thing that would have never happened to a guy. Even if you're in yoga and you take off your shirt,
Yep.
It's very unlikely that maybe the teacher, even if it's a guy that makes a move on you, could happen, but it will not make you feel unsafe as it does as a woman.
Yes, that's another level, yeah.
And if it's a female teacher, I think it's very unlikely that she does. I would assume.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you're like, I don't know, like super.
I mean, the thing is,
hot guy. I don't know.
The thing is, it's the way that action is interpreted, right? I think as men, if you take your shirt off and then your teacher starts paying more attention to you, it's unlikely to come with the same type of discomfort and fear as it would if the roles were reversed. I think. For whatever reason, I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, and also you're 2 meters high or a bit more than 2 meters. So
I'm not afraid. I'm not really afraid. I'm not afraid of anybody, really, right? And I can understand that if there is like a power imbalance, then it feels very different when somebody pays attention to you in a way that you don't like.
Mm, mhm.
And that is what I acknowledge and I want to fix. And I don't think that me keeping my shirt on is going to help this person in this yoga class, because the issue there is that men do not realize that they are making somebody feel bad by paying attention to them, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to confuse those two things. I want to try to find a solution for that. I want to take my shirt off and say, hey, I want to make it safe for everybody to take their shirt off, rather than to say, hey, I'm going to keep my shirt on because since somebody else can't take their shirt off, then I think that if I keep my shirt on, it makes things better,
Yeah.
which I don't think it does.
Got it.
Yeah.
I always think when I see guys running without the shirt, I mean, normally the guys who tend to do that is because they have a nice body.
It could be. It could be.
You will never see a guy with man boobs and a belly
I've
doing
seen that.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I haven't, and then I always think, this guy's just showing off.
Yeah. So I have also seen somebody in extremely good shape and thought this for 1 second, and then I was like, how the fuck do I know? I mean, like, there are a million other reasons that he might have taken his shirt off right now.
Yeah.
And so then I just checked myself, because this is the thing that I really want to push against, is making an assumption about why somebody is doing something. And that's why I say, speak up and have a conversation. Because if you say, hey, I don't like you showing off, and the person is like, I'm not showing off, I'm hot, this is how I run, then it's like, okay. Then maybe it's okay, actually.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that you can only discover by treating the other person with respect and then having a conversation with them about it.
I mean, it's interesting if you maybe can share one advice for people who want to jump into do one thing, to quit your job and do what they love. How has been that path of as an entrepreneur, because that's what you are now?
Yeah.
How has it been for you? Has it been easy? Has it been complicated? Has it been confusing with bureaucracy or law or taxes, or how was it?
I would say the one thing is you need to find a way to survive when you are not making any money. So for me, it was that I still have some DJ gigs. I sometimes look after people's dogs and they pay me. And I have a spare room, which I put on Airbnb, and that covers my rent. So then when I quit my job, I knew I could survive from savings because I spend almost no money. And I would say, if you want to quit your job and do something that you love, depending on what that thing is, it's going to take you probably a year before you are making money. So you need to be able to survive a year without making any money. Once you know how to do that, then it's just a matter of committing to it and working on it every day, I would say. And I think this is the most magical thing, is that when you say, hey, I am committed to this thing and this is the only thing that I'm going to do, then you will find a way to make it work. Like, if other people have found a way to make it work, you can also find a way to make it work. And the way you're going to find a way to make it work is by committing to it and saying, this is the only thing I'm doing. Because the other thing, when I had a million different projects, is that I would work on something, and then as soon as it got difficult, I would just go do something else. Like, I would switch to another project, right? And those difficult things are the things that make it what it is. That's where growth comes, is from solving these difficult problems. And so if you say, this is the only thing I'm going to do, when you get to that difficult problem, you have no choice. You're there. There's nothing else for you to do. So you go and you solve the problem, and then the thing becomes really, really valuable. So figuring out, for most businesses, that's figuring out how to get people to pay you. And once you figure that out once, then you have a business, right? And so if you love playing the guitar or whatever, but you also have 10 other projects, and you go and you play the guitar, and then you're like, I wish I could play the guitar all the time, but nobody's paying me for it, so I'm just going to go keep working in tech, then you will never figure out how to get people to pay you to play the guitar. But if you jump out of the nest and you say, I'm not doing anything else, I'm just going to play the guitar until I figure out a way to get paid, I think that if I quit running today, I could get people to pay me to play the guitar in a year. No problem. And that might be giving lessons, that might be creating content, that might be just going out on the street and playing the fucking guitar until I figure out how to do it in a way that people like. It's like maybe playing covers, maybe playing, like getting a little... But if you show up every day and you say, I'm going to try to solve this problem, you will solve that problem. So that's the thing. You create the framework by saying, I'm not gonna run away and do something else. I'm going to solve these difficult problems.
Wow, it's so powerful. I mean, through my whole life, I think from the last 15 years, I have always tried to build an idea of a startup. I build a website, I build the app, because I'm a software engineer. So I always build something. I make it look nice.
Yeah.
I buy the domain.
Yeah.
I put it out there. And then when it gets hard, which is getting a
Client.
user,
Yep.
getting a client, a paying customer,
Yep.
then I am like, I don't know how to solve this.
Yep.
So I get a new idea and I build another app and another's website and everything. Because that's the part that I know how to do, but I never go beyond the part that I don't know how to do.
This is exactly it. And, and that problem is difficult, but it's not impossible. It's just if you had to solve that problem, you would solve it. And I even so with Run and Rave, we have every Tuesday we have this creative session, and almost everybody comes in with talking about exactly what you're talking about. So they're like, they have a business or they want to start a business. Some of them even already have clients and they spend weeks fixing their website, you know? And I'm like, are you sure that the thing standing between you and more clients is your website? Because I've seen people who have more work than they can possibly even do and don't even have a website. So I ask about where that assumption comes from, but I think it's like you said, it's that we obsess about the things that we know how to do. We solve the easy problems because solving the difficult problems is really, really scary. And so I mean, when somebody comes to me also with like an idea for an app or whatever, I'm like, can you, instead of spending the next 6 months changing fonts, developing this app, can you make a PDF and go sell the PDF to people? Because it's going to take the same amount of work. And if you do that part first, then at the end, it's very, very easy to build the app. In fact, like what I say when somebody comes and they're like, hey, I want to make this new, I want to make a new Tinder. I'm like, okay, put in a PDF, exactly what you want that Tinder to be, and then go and try to sell it to people, and make a WhatsApp group or a mailing list or whatever. And if you get 1,000 people on that mailing list, I bet you can create a business, and I bet you can get somebody somewhere to develop that MVP for you in a month. And I bet you can do it pretty easily, and I bet you can raise money, and I bet you can, because the difficult part is selling people the idea, right? And that's what you should concentrate on first. And you don't need to have the product in order to sell it. There's lots of people who have a website with a landing page which says like, hey, we're making the next hoverboard or whatever.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I want that. Take my money. And if you can get people to, for example, like if you say, hey, put $5 here, and then you will be on the waiting list for the hoverboard. Then at the end, if you have 1,000 people and they've all paid $5, you have $5,000. You can get somebody to go make something, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it the other way, you think, okay, I want a hoverboard. I'm pretty sure people are going to want to buy it. You spend 6 months, a whole bunch of money developing something. In the end, you realize nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Or it's not even really that nobody wants it. It's just that the hard part is finding the people who want it, and then you give up, and then you just wasted a whole bunch of time, right?
Yeah.
So this. I think often, if you sit down with somebody who has a lot of experience in this, they will tell you, do not start building, right? Like absolutely do not start building, because it's much more important that you find the people who want it before you start building, because anyway, whatever you build, you're going to be building for them, right? So if you talk to them first and you get some feedback, you're going to build something that's 1,000,000 times better, and potentially you're going to just stop yourself from wasting a lot of time. And I think that's a really good strategy for doing that.
That's pretty good advice.
Yeah.
What is from your perspective, what's the secret to have a good life in Berlin?
Say no to a lot of stuff. Figure out what you like. Get a lot of rest. Find a community that does something that makes you happy. And I think you'd be good.
And one last question, because you said as a kid you used to drive around the lake in the back of the truck, look at the stars, listening Bob Marley, Michael Jackson, and just normal dad stuff, you said. If that kid in that truck under the stars could see you today, what do you think would make him proud, and what would surprise him the most?
I think he would be proud that I found something that I love doing for myself, running. I think that kid probably had the same joy of just like running through the grass with no shoes on as I feel now, which I'm really grateful for. What was the second question?
What would make him What would surprise him?
Oh, what would surprise him? Probably that I didn't become a programmer or astronaut or any of these things, and that I found joy in something so basic.
Or a basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ben, where can people find you, and when do you run, and how can they join?
Yeah. So they can find me on my Instagram. My handle is Ben in Living Color. And then the running club is called Run and Rave, and we run every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Around Görlitzer Park. If you just look it up on Instagram, you can sign up and join. The runs are really easy and really short and really slow. It's for all my friends who are like, I can't run. I'm like, you can run.
How many kilometers you do?
3.5 kilometers usually.
Okay, that is doable.
It's doable for everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody. So I really, it's so inspiring to me when people show up at 7 a.m. and do that. And we have, in the summer, sometimes we're 60, 70 people running together. So,
wow.
Yeah. And people told me nobody's going to show up at 7 a.m. for a run. So I'm very, very happy that they were wrong. A lot of people show up. The community is growing all the time and making me even more happy.
Ben, thanks a lot for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I have learned a lot from you about the one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy the book.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the link in the description so people can also buy the book with an Amazon affiliate link, probably.
Perfect. Since reading that book, I've also read a lot of other books which are equally as helpful. So also, if you're curious about books, send me a message. This is what I've done with since I have two tasks on my to-do list every day. Sometimes I'm done at like 12, 1, and I read now like a book a week.
A book a week.
Wow. So if you're curious about books, I have tons of recommendations.
But with ADHD, having ADHD, when you have ADHD, how easy is to read a book? Don't you get distracted while you're reading?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I get distracted doing everything else. But honestly, I think ADHD, also the reason I never took like the medication that they gave me is because I think all people with ADHD recognize when you're doing something that you love, you don't get distracted. It's like they call it like hyperfocus or no focus. So people with ADHD, once they get locked in, are like you don't see anything else. And when I read a book, that's how I am.
Yeah, and if you think in a way, it's kind of a superpower to be able to focus like 100% on something that you love.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people, the ADHD really, really shines because in most of life, we're like sitting in a classroom, watching presentation about something that we absolutely do not care about.
Yeah.
And then everything, like you're overwhelmed by the need to go and get your energy out somewhere else. So
yeah. It's like just to fit in some parts of the system, but actually...
Yeah. ADHD, I think, is just a description of a very normal part of society, which doesn't fit very well into what society looks like right now. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a disease or something like that. I think it's just a normal type of functioning, which is not very good at doing things that are not interesting. Some people are very good at it, but people with ADHD usually not. Yeah.
Ben, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Adam.